remember shut things and enable others here. Let me check something else real quick. You know, the more I mess with this stuff, the worse I get at it. That doesn't seem like going in the right direction. I think it changes faster than I keep up.
Frank Watson here with Tom Probasco.
So,
Adventures in Aging and Technology.
Adventures in it. Great. Yeah. GRATE or GRE? Changes it great. Old age is not for sissies.
How you doing?
Oh, not bad. You remember we're connecting, and I can't remember whether it was David Slade's, you, or how it went. The singer songwriter lives in Greenwood, but it's all over the place. Aaron Lipp.
Yeah.
He and David and a young guy named Jess were here Saturday, and we played a few things and got to meet Aaron and Jess. And I've been listening to, see if I can put this up. This is a disc that, so it's gonna show up backwards in it. But it's called The Wandering Tulips. That's what Aaron and his wife.
Yeah.
So it kind of, it dawned on me at some point, Aaron Lipp, two lips. And this one is called The Stagecoach Sessions. It was recorded down in Metamora not too long ago. Got 1, 2, 3, 6 songs on it. Glorious, Still, Propagate You, Four Walls, Familiar, and Craven. And I just listened to it yesterday. It was a very nice album. And going back to Saturday when they were here, I got to play some harmonica with them. And it's interesting. I don't know why, because I'm not enough of a musician, but those songs had me playing harmonicas and keys I don't usually get to play. And so it was nice because every harmonica has a different voice.
Yes.
So there are people who have the ability, to use a C harp, and they're good enough at bending into, they can play any key. Well, I don't do that. Most harmonica don't. But anyway, that was good to meet Aaron Lipp. You remember at some point we were making those connections. I think you posted on some of his posts or replied to some of Aaron's posts.
Yeah, I remember the name. I was interested in getting him to take over Acoustic Indiana. I thought it would be a good match for what he's doing, but he never reached back. So
he's really busy. He's so Saturday. So he lives in Greenwood. Saturday, the day he met with David and I, he had been up in Carmel at a gig. Then he came down here and met with it. No, I go back further now.
Tom, make sure you're on your microphone good.
Yeah, I think I do. Anyway, so when David Slates and I met with Aaron on Saturday afternoon, he and this Jess, I don't know Jess's last name, but anyway, they've been in Bloomington, playing someplace.
Been where?
Bloomington, Indiana.
I think that's probably Jess Jones.
Oh, I think you're right. I believe you're right. Okay, so you've heard of him too.
Yeah.
Okay, so and I'd never met either one of them. And then they were up in Carmel before they got to our house here. So Bloomington in the morning, Carmel afternoon, down here just meeting with David and I. Then they were going to Zionsville from there, from here. So that he's really busy now. For some of the time, in this case, I don't know where he had played with his wife, whether she was in Bloomington. They've got two young kids, so I'm not sure their schedule, but he's a busy young guy. Busy young guys can be. And some of us old guys for that matter. So it was interesting to hear different songs, because playing with True North, I hear that set of songs.
Yeah.
Playing those keys and these fellows. Aaron writes well, and Jess writes songs too. We played some of his originals. In fact, we played all originals. They went back and forth. First Jess would play one, then Aaron would play one. Back and forth went until we ran out of time and had to go to Zionsville. But very interesting. Good songs.
I'm really happy. I'm really happy to see those guys working. It's a
Well, they need. David and I were talking about this. They don't get paid enough.
I know.
They and David was saying some of these places they were playing. He said they could afford to pay them more. So it's the old thing, Frank. Back when we had the band, you called full benefits.
Right.
It's the old thing of just not. You have to have financial support.
Yes, and you also have to have people that are not spoiled, and in many ways that goes back to the electronic media brings people the music that they can hear. It doesn't bring the real presence, like this conversation. I'll repost it, but it's not the same as sitting down and having a conversation. And
Right.
And there's no better way of establishing that than by actually sitting down and having a conversation. We've talked about that. We need to get that on the agenda.
Yeah, we will. We were texting. It was yesterday, the day before. I can't remember. Yeah, we ought to. Be good to meet. I've never met John Lowe in person.
Yeah.
And we both had when I was talking about son Chris and some of his experiences, and said, it's good to sit down and talk in person with John.
Yeah. Probably scheduling an early morning get together. Barbara usually is not up until about 11.
Yeah.
But that's a usual,
Sure.
If we ran like from about 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock, we'd have a couple hours.
Yeah. Where do you usually meet with John?
John and I have talked briefly in person. We do centering prayer on Mondays at 4:30 in the movie room up off the town hall.
Oh,
and
where's the movie room?
Well, the town hall space.
Yeah.
If you go to the west side, where the restrooms are.
Oh, I think I do know.
Yeah,
I've seen that room. It's been a while.
Restrooms, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know they called it the movie room. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
I walked down to his apartment, saw some of his paintings, nice paintings. The guy's multi-talented.
These are paintings that John did?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I knew he played music.
He started out as a jazz musician playing saxophone, I believe, and He's also an artist. He is taught at the college level and been a Episcopal priest and now a evangelical Catholic. So he's
Yeah,
he's got some miles and on him, you know, in both music and the spiritual growth and professional work.
yeah. Where is his apartment? Okay, so you're on the third. You're on the third floor.
Second.
Second. Okay.
Yeah.
How many floors? How many
There's
floors?
just two floors.
Okay, 2 floors. And so John's down. He is where, on the first floor?
First floor, west side.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, we could excuse me, Tom.
Yeah.
I've been drinking coffee and it doesn't hydrate me. I'm drinking water now.
Yeah. I hear you.
Mm.
I'm still drinking coffee. I haven't gotten to that. I actually do it, say in the morning. I have to do both, but the coffee has to be included in there. Although I'm not as addicted to it as I used to be. I mean, I don't get it. Used to be, if I didn't get the coffee, something would happen. I wouldn't get that coffee. I'd get a headache. Now I just sort of don't wake up all the way. I don't, which maybe I don't wake up all the way a lot of mornings anyway.
Well, I've got a headache right now, but it's because of I've got a toothache.
Oh dear. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Another trip to the VA then or does the VA do teeth?
I don't think they do teeth. I've got a dentist I go to, but I can't get to him till Tuesday or Wednesday rather. But they told me, take ibuprofen and follow it with, an hour later you take acetaminophen. It's always something.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh yeah. I know.
I'm really kind of interested in my own response. I'm distancing a little bit. You see that background there. I'm going trying to get a interstellar point of view on that headache.
Yes, you are. Yes, I see that. Yes. Well, that was just briefly, I guess. So son Chris, he's down there, works on a blueberry farm. So they're out in a very rural, remote area.
We're recording, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And he was, you saw I won't go into the details just because it take too long, but he, the UFO, they said, we'll just stand out here and see what we see. And it was interesting what appeared. Now, it wasn't one of those things that the federal government's going to get involved, but just the way he described that, you can see how different people would make different things and of course, where they are, seeing your background there, you don't have the light pollution you have
Right.
where we
Okay.
live here. So they're out in this field, and it's a clear night. They can see an awful lot. So this whatever they saw, they got to see very clearly, and it behaved in a way that kind of I can't explain it, but it's just it is and it is interesting what is perceived. But these days, you have to be out in an area where you can see lights of whatever kind in the night sky.
Uh-huh.
And that is certainly the situation they were in to begin
Yeah.
with. So, but anyway, yeah, at some point maybe we get together with John. Be interesting to hear his take on what we'll call paranormal, well, I don't know if USA was paranormal, but people who experience things, let's say, you know, that some might say ghosts or something, things that move that shouldn't be moving, that kind of thing. There's another Chris story, and it'd be interesting to hear John's take on these things. John mentioned, like we get together doing this Zoom on Wednesdays, and he said, we need to feel free to disagree, which I I do. It's not that he didn't, but a lot of what we talk about with John, they aren't things that I have. The subject matters that we cover, they're not really things that I would think, oh, John, that's not right, or Frank, that's not right, because the topics that we're covering are things that I am just pondering. I don't, I have a sense of what feels true to me, but that doesn't mean I think it's true and whatever you or John are thinking is false. I don't have that. I don't have that perspective. You may say that, you may make a point and I may think I don't connect with that, but that's not the same thing as I think it's wrong. So the kind of discussions we have, I don't really have that right or wrong dichotomy going on.
I was thinking about that, and I there are some people that cannot be happy until they get in some sort of closure agreement with the person that you're talking to, and it's like one way of being a Christian is to believe that everybody who's not a Christian, when they die, is going to go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
that's not the only way to be a Christian for others of us.
Right.
But
Yeah.
for those that feel that way, there's what is called an exclusive truth claim. This is the truth. You either accept it, all of it, just the way it is, or you're going to hell.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what hell is or where it's located.
Yeah.
And there's so many translations between me and the people that originally described it.
Yeah.
And every translation brings the culture and the
human perspective.
yes, so much of what we are is made up of the language we use.
Yeah.
This drinking cup for some people would be described as the female container. There would be a gender assigned to
Yeah. Right.
it. For me, in English, there is no gender assigned to it.
Not that way. Yeah.
Right.
Not for the not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think about there's in scripture there is the story of the Tower of Babel.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
how people got together and were building a tower into heaven. Well, that may sound like a nice imaginary myth. To one person, to another person, it might be a story of a preceding civilization that was designing something for space flight,
Mm-hmm.
an older technology. For others, it might be some mixture of people were building a bamboo tower, and were overtaken by an invading army, and the story got mixed up. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah. There's ways of sorting through stories. Like the Easter Island the books. And when you translate people's myths, when you learn to listen in a certain way, so that you get certain meanings, and the myths carry specific literal information about how the Easter Island heads were moved. These big.
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah. You see a lot of things about that. Yeah.
So, or at least that's the claim. But I think a lot of the trouble that we have in the chaos in this life is due to differences in language, and culture. The Russian view of the world, for instance, Stalin was viewed as a very positive person. Oh, he killed 1 million people or something, but he was strong, and he kept the country together, and I can see that point. I can also,
Especially if you don't, especially before you learn about a lot of the other things that happen during
right,
that,
or
or
especially
maybe even after you do, who knows? Yeah, like you said. Well,
especially if you're not part of one of the groups that got caught in one of the pogroms.
Yeah. Yeah.
The story of the U.S. very similar. The story I grew up on didn't dwell much on what happened to Native American cultures, tribal groups. Okay, but neither does the modern take dwell on things like uh, 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 some of the cruelty that was practiced by some of the Native American groups. And I, I, I read a story about somebody wrote about visiting an Indian camp, and there was a 3-legged dog, and the Indian, some of the Indian men had cut off one of his legs to eat. That's kind of harsh, but different levels of consciousness, culture, language, how people view the world, make such a difference.
There was a novel I read. I haven't read everything. Louise Erdrich is a woman who is I think her dad is German, but her mother is a Chippewa band. And so she identifies as a native, while recognizing and having written stories about her German background too. But one of the stories, a lot of native characters, and there was a scene where there's a big boiling pot of water. And this grandmother, as I recall, I'd have to look it up to, how details get away, but she was dropping puppies into this water. They're going to eat them. A child ran up and wanted one of those puppies. She said, well, okay. But the rest of them were boiled for food. So that's, I mean, that's, so what we, I think that's what you're getting at. So what we
Yes,
could see,
exactly. That's exactly.
yeah. And so it's not, we talked about this. There are times when cruelty is obviously, that's what it is. The person, uh, Putin, even Netanyahu, there are things occurring that is, yeah, maybe it's part of the culture. I don't know, but it's very psychopathic. So, we were talking about that before with John before Poof, and I think we'll get back to that. But it's interesting. Then he sent that, and I sent something back talking about the nature of, where people lack something to have a conscience, and he sent something that there were studies done about how much of that is the physicality, psych, whatever proper term it would be, and how much of it is affected by society. I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here. I realize what we're talking about. But it does kind of fit in that it is hard to interpret over time and space and place, what why things happen that we would interpret as terrible or even maybe wonderful.
Well, let's go back to the puppies in the boiling water.
Yeah.
Uh, you ever watch somebody cook lobsters?
Oh yeah. I know. I and it took Julia and I have gotten to a point where we eat very little meat, uh, but at some point, yeah, you see that, and for years, I don't think we thought of how horrific, or even, I'll tell you what, another thing that happened is we went on the kids, we got together, Julia and I and the three kids, and went out on the lake. And there was a bottle, like a large pot ball bobbing up and down in the water. And Joey said, oh, there's some trash. Let's roll over there and get it. And pulled it up, and there was a catfish on a hook. And Lori and I managed to get the catfish free. But that impact that had on Julia, and frankly, me too, via that, she said, this is, people talk about the insensitivity of fish as if they know. Uh, but that had that moved Julia especially further along. I tried to kind of follow too. But that goes to what you're saying, the puppies, what, to drop any living thing, the boiling water. But in some cases, my case, it takes a while to sort of, the closer the creature is, like to a mammal like yourself, like a puppy, versus a lobster, you can sort of, perception has to change.
Yeah, but what what do what do we know about the sentience of lobsters?
Yeah. Well, what do we know? I mean, I think about this more and more, as I said, I think of John on our Wednesday about sentience of trees. But what's changed for me is it's not, again, it's not that I know, but what have I pondered that I didn't ponder before, whatever I mean by that.
viewed one way, the whaling industry, the history of it, the ships, the songs, were all just heroic. But that's told from the point of view of the people who gloried in the positive qualities, the strength and the courage and the ingenuity of their culture.
Right.
And it's not at all viewed from the point of view of the whales. And whales are sentient.
Yeah.
And yet we we don't really acknowledge that. When one sentient being eats another, you have something that I feel cannibalistic. It is my perception of that.
Perception changes over time. You can remember a time that you didn't think about it at all.
Yes, but then there's a god described in Indian of India writing and myth that the story goes that this god was going to punish, I don't know, another god maybe for something. So he created a creature with an insatiable hunger that would go after this, whatever it was. But whatever it was that the creature was going to go after appealed to the god. And if you, the way that it's seen is if you appeal to the god is duty bound to respect your appeal and honor it. So he did. And then the creature that was created with the hunger said, well, what about me? I have an insatiable, eternal hunger. And so the god said, well, you can feed on yourself. And so he started at consuming his own tail.
That symbol of the snake eating,
yeah,
is what I think of, the snake that's.
So the god, that the head god or whatever, saw this, and he thought that was the most outstanding symbol of life. That is something that feeds upon itself, and it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that symbol of the creature eating itself is now placed over the head of temples as a reminder that this is life.
Yeah. Wendell Berry talks about that, even in terms of, he talking about eating plants. Even he says there is no life without death.
And one way of viewing God is that God is in everything.
Yeah.
That the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao, because it's more transcendent than that. And yet that the presence is in everything and connected to intelligence. And So even, the computers that we're using for this conversation are all part of a sentient world or a sentient universe, and that exists beyond time. And when we start thinking in those terms, Carolyn Myss, 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 uses a really good metaphor. She draws a picture of a building and she puts in floors. And she says, on the first floor, you look outside and you see the city, and you're concerned about the cars traveling at too great a speed, or sirens, or gangs running up and down the street, or the garbage piled up. And I think she was describing New York City, whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she said that if your apartment is on that floor, your concern is survival. You got the smell and the noise of the street. You got the risk involved with it. But as you go up to the penthouse,
Mm-hmm.
your view changes.
Right.
And at the penthouse, you no longer see the people and things of the street. The air is pure. The view is clear. You can look off in the distance and see the Hudson River. And so the world is different depending on the level of your consciousness.
Yeah.
When you come up off the survival level, but she says every level has a higher cost. And I for one am interested in paying that cost. I'm pursuing a meditation and prayer and the practice of basically the practice of kindness. I look at my own personal history as an outsider at this point. It's like it was someone else.
I've kind of lost you at that point. You look at this point in time, you look at your own personal history as if you're.
I'm no longer. I'm less and less connected to a childhood of competitiveness,
Oh,
of willingness to do violence.
okay.
Uh,
I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
I can
I have
relate.
I have a special problem with meat that I've had since I raised a calf.
Mhm.
4-H, took her to the county fair, took her to the state fair, and there was a bond there,
Right.
love, and I really haven't, I've continued to eat meat because it's so damned inconvenient not to. But
Yeah.
here
We
lately,
run up against convenience in this society,
yeah,
and not even knowing that we are so affected. Convenience begins to seem like necessity.
and currently I'm a lot more comfortable